Okay, Skyla. I was starting to play around with it, forgot wasn't recording, so just to show you, I kind of pulled up some references. I just went into stylized character reference folder I have and just found a bunch of cool stuff. Not everything, is Goblin related. Really only have one image that's Goblin related, but I wasn't quite sure where we were going with this, so I figured I'd explore a little bit and play around with a little bit. And so I was looking at a variety of stuff just to get some inspiration or try new things. I thought this was really cool. It's from Sea Beast. But I like how the whole face kind of becomes one shape. You guys don't have to do that. Also was kind of into things like this. This one, they're a little bit more beefy and masculine, of course. But I do think those bigger pieces and facial features that are like a little blockier is cool. So just probably proportions wise, I would just simplify so it doesn't have quite so much masculinity to it. So this one's kind of somewhere in between. So that's kind of nice. I want to really quickly see if I have any Goblin reference. Okay, I found a couple of them. So we don't have to go this route. Obviously, what we should be doing is looking at the reference and making sure we're staying true to the reference. Let's go ahead and make sure that one's pulled up. But there's a lot that's unknown. So we know overall he's going to be kind of youngish, and we know he's going to be kind of cute, right? We're not going to make him too gnarly like these guys or evil looking. But hopefully this can give me some ideas. So first I'm going to so I did a couple things first, right? So one, I kind of adjusted this skull shape. I pulled this eye socket back a little right here. I pulled this temple forward. Um, I kind of simplified this shape right here and kind of reduced the angularness. I have the other one here, right? So here we can kind of see that. For the nose, I just subdivided it a little bit and then smoothed it out. And then I just kind of made it into two parts. I could literally make it into two parts. You can see I made nostril objects because, all these characters, their nostrils are pretty prominent. Eventually when I merge them together, they'll all kind of blend together. But this way, if I did want to have some specifically shaped nostrils, it gives me a good head start. This is just a sphere, and I just did a clip curve, which is a brush that you do something like you could do this, right? Let's see, Control Shift, and then you can see you can clip things. So I just flattened it, and I'd probably do something similar for the bottom of the nose like that, and then just smooth and soften it up. Okay. I also put in like a mouth cavity area because, like I said, I was looking at a lot of this stuff where some of the facial features are more exaggerated. So we get a little less like this one and a little bit more like maybe no, not there. I don't have any references for it, but besides like the sorrow head, something that's a little bit more complex, or not complex, but it has more of those volumes and shapes and anatomy pieces in there. So that's kind of what I was doing there. Another thing, so I put in a jaw object, and so again, I was thinking about making those like more prominent features. Something I noticed you were doing that I wouldn't recommend necessarily, as we'll come on this object, is I think you're using the pinch brush. I wouldn't use the pinch brush, mostly because it does this where it squeezes topology together and it causes stretching. You can, especially if it's on higher res, but just be aware that that's what it does. I personally don't use it. Usually what I'll do is I'll just Z remesh so that I get topology that supports the forms, right? So you can see I have a topology now that supports the form. And if I need to re-enhance it, I'll either project the details back on or, use something like Damien Standard, clay to fill in any like cavity areas, and then hard polish to flatten off anything. So that's what I was just kind of doing. So I just took this. I pretty much just softened this up quite a bit. I kept it sharper up here, so you can see it. I kept it like that right there. And then let it smooth off right here. And I got kind of like a flat side plane here. Um, and I saw this as an opportunity to play around. But again, like your team has a vision. I'm one person, so I can do whatever I want, right? So you have to work with your team on like if any of these changes are good ideas or not, right? So while I might be doing something, don't take that as like, hey guys, Caleb thinks this is a better approach for our character or something like that. Yeah, it's a team effort, so you just make sure you guys are all running it by each other. So anyways, yeah, I was blocking that in. I put the eyeball object there. I didn't change anything else, and that's kind of where I got to. I just Z-meshed most of these objects that I was messing around with so that I could get, like this one right here, I'll go ahead and Z-mesh it. I'm not worried too much about the sharpness, right, or losing that sharpness, because I can just get it back by just using like Damien Standard. And if you want to get it back with Damien Standard without like getting this cavity raising thing, you just use like a smaller Z intensity, or sorry, smaller brush size, or you add a subdivision level and you just do it at a higher subdivision level. And that usually can give it to you. Another thing you can do is you can go clay polish, which is under geometry. And that will essentially planarize your, emphasize planes on your surface and sharp lines. It has different effects depending on the subdivision level, so I'll click on it here. So you can see if I do it at this subdivision level, it shrinks a little bit. If I do it on this one, you'll see it shrinks a lot more. If I go down on the subdivision level, it shrinks even more. So in this case, I'm just going to do it on a higher subdivision level. One thing that's not noticeable on it is it creates a mask. It's very subtle, but whenever you run it, it creates a mask, so you just immediately clear mask afterwards, so just keep that in mind. So I'll go back down to my lower subdivision level and, just readjust that. Okay. All right, so in this case, I'm going to keep going forward. I'm just kind of playing around, so I might, there's going to be periods where I probably just am not talking, and it's just going to be a time lapse, and some parts where I'll remember to talk and start saying things. So I'm going to be looking at a lot of these. I think one of the things is like, I like that their heads, and a lot of these guys, the cuter ones, not I'd say quote unquote cuter, is their heads are like a little bit more spherical, I guess, and then they have some bony protrusions, but I guess that jaw area is like way less pronounced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of bring this jaw eye socket area in. So we're just going to kind of pull this stuff in a little bit. Let's go ahead and bring his eye scale his eye down. Pull that over. I'll worry about the eyes in a little bit. His jaw is very, very strong. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring it in, soften it up a bit. Let's go ahead and do the same thing on his chin. We'll probably have to get rid of this really big bony chin if we want to kind of have that feeling. So I'll just kind of pull this in. So it's a little too high res, right? So I'll drop down to subdivision level. Just keep in mind that, this stage, if I'm looking for like clean shapes and forms, I'm not going to be working too high res, because then your model ends up being lumpy in the end. So I don't know, maybe I'll do something like, let's see, well, I could do this, let's go like that, and then we'll try clip curve. I'll probably back off on this. I don't know if I'll do it like this, but oof, it's kind of annoying. So I'm not going to tell you how to use everything, but clip curve, you control shift drag, when you press alt, you add like an anchor point for the curve. So it's always kind of hard to use, but let's see, something like that. And then, yeah, something. It didn't give me exactly what I wanted, but whatever. So I'm just going to use, most of the time I'm just using the move brush, and then other ones to just polish this, or to clean up the surface. Let's make it maybe a little bit more angular. So let's see. You'll see me probably play around with this a lot. Let's see. Okay, reduce his jaw still. Make him a little wimpier. Oh yeah, his jaw still needs to come back a lot. I don't mind his cheekbones being prominent. Let's turn perspective back on. Let's pull this all the way back. Coming through. Just gonna use inflate, smooth, inflate, smooth. I got like a really weird stretchy shape, so inflating and smoothing it or polishing it, just using polish, that stuff usually just destroys it. Like it essentially like smooths out the surface. Like if I select that area, and just run polish, you can see it just flattens it out. Anyways, I don't know why I'm poking that out. I guess it just gave it some volume back here that I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of missing. Like that corner of the jaw should be a little volumetric, round. So I'm just taking advantage of something that just accidentally happened. You don't have to recreate this shape, that's for sure. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and redefine this chin jaw, or where the jaw starts and stops, but between his underside of his neck. Let's see. Oh, and let's go ahead and Z-mesh this thing. Okay. All right, I'm losing a little too much, so I'll just go a little higher. Z-mesh. Hmm. Yeah, it's going a little too low, so let's just go a little bit higher. All right, that's fine enough. Again, you don't want to be too precious on stuff. We want to keep clean large forms. So if we lose some of that stuff, like really clean, nice curvatures, things like that, that's an area where I'd be like, oh, I want that back. I need to get that back. But details, like sharp planes and things like that, that's where I'm not going to worry too much. So I'm actually going to make that probably pretty simple. All right. Let's see how wide we want his mouth to be. So the cool thing about this being separated, kind of like this guy, you can see where his mouth, these guys' mouth line or teeth kind of area is, and where it separates away from the cheek muscles. Same thing with her, right? That kind of shows you where that nasolabial fold is a good kind of spot to show that. So in our character right here, it's kind of in a normal place where we'd expect it. But we can take this and pull this back and out a little bit. We want this to be pretty much cylindrical, this whole area right here. So yeah, just keep that in mind. If these lip kind of lines are like distracting me, like right now that looks like he's like blowing a kiss or something like that, I'm just gonna break it off or just erase it. I was just doing that just to try to figure out where his mouth line might be. Okay, oops, so I got the wrong brush on, so I'm just gonna keep smoothing that. Again, this is just a low res dynameshed, or sorry, dynamic subdivisioned model. And I'm switching subtools really quickly by just alt clicking on things. So yeah, I mean, there might be a point where it could be kind of cool if you had like a, jutting out lower lip. I'm gonna use my worm brush just to kind of mock that up. So if I did something like this, oop, I had subdivision levels. So let's just tap that to make it bigger. Let's make it bigger. Okay, not that big. Okay, and then let me go ahead and clear that. Get rid of the curve by tapping on the mesh, and then mirror and weld. So I'm just doing this really, really stupidly. So I'm just going to go ahead and hide that or mask that off. So let's go ahead and pull this out. Let me go ahead and separate this out. Split hidden. All right. I think it should be this thing. All right. And I definitely need to ZBrush this thing. ZBrush. All right, cool. So let's give it just a little bit of definition so we can kind of see what that might look like. Yeah, I don't know. Cool thing about separating these out into different pieces, like I can go really extreme with this kind of stuff, right? Like, look how easy it is for me to like make this a more prominent or less prominent shape without messing around with all the other stuff I have, right? Let's see if we made this a little bit more neutral. And the only problem I have right now is I'm messing around with this at a high subdivision level. Let's give this a little bit more thickness. And I'll just bring that down a little bit. So I'm just gonna, we're just gonna plane that a little bit. Ooh, I'm not super happy with it right now, but I like the idea. Okay. Let's go down a subdivision level, just so, I'm doing big form changes. I'm guilty of forgetting to do that just as much as anybody else is. Let's see. I don't know. It's interesting. Let's go ahead and let's do something else. Let's do delete higher subdivision level. Let's flip it in the Y. There we go. Let's do what if you had an overbite? Probably going to be less successful, I'm guessing. Kind of looks weird. But yeah, I don't know. There's just, this is how you can just like iterate and block out some things and try new stuff. Yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of works. Kind of gives him like a very docile sort of appearance to him, I think. Something I kind of like about this reference that I have on the side here is I like how kind of gives him an old man look, though. That's the only downside. A lot like that character on the left, I guess. Um, uh, the I can't remember what I was gonna say. Something, something, something. Okay, let's go here. I'm gonna go ahead and push this stuff back. Yeah, let's go ahead and just pull this back. I'm gonna go under the assumption that we don't want our Goblin character to be too dynamic in that area. So that's kind of nice, actually. I like that. Let's go ahead and just raise it a little bit. If the nose and the mouth are closer, usually it'll be cuter. Usually it's like more cat and baby facial features. Cats and babies have very similar facial proportions. That's why we think cats are so cute. I'm just using a basic material, by the way. Let's just pull that back. I'm gonna do maybe something like this. I think that kind of works for him. All right, let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and choose how I'm gonna exaggerate some features. I'm gonna take this advantage of working on a goblin character to really enhance some and stylize something. So I'm gonna really enhance maybe his eye socket area. It's very common. Not anything new, something a lot of people do. Let's get that clay and bring it down a little bit. Just so I don't get this like sharp pinchy shape right there. And I'm going to go ahead and get this to be a little bit more graceful, right? I want him to be personally, I would want him to be choppy, right? I want him to be a little blocky, just I think it kind of matches. It would match his character if, all of his features, or, a lot of aspects of him were like blocky, chunky. And I'm just trying to figure out what that means here. So I'll just keep that in mind while I'm going forward. Using hard polish just to flat things down. Let's see. Where do I want his mouth to end? Okay, so let's see. Let's go in terms of this depth-wise. I think a deeper mouth I keep seeing on those goblins that I saw up there. So let's go ahead and just pull this in a little bit. Oops. So I'll probably pull that out. I'm just trying to get it, or back out. I'm just trying to see how deep his mouth is. Yeah, that works for me. I'll pull this. I think I'm missing a little cheek though, so I'm going to pull that out forward. Let's go ahead and reconfigure this eye socket a bit. So if I ever don't know if I like something or not, and I want to go back and compare, I'm about to make a big change. I'll go ahead and store morph target up here, which is found under the morph target tab. And I'm just going to kind of start to try to get this to integrate with the cheekbone. And let's get like I'm going to get very specific kind of, I want to get this cheekbone and eye socket to work together. I mean, like this one's very cool, very stylized, very neat. So I'm gonna maybe steal a little bit of that, right? Let's go ahead and we'll just this area right here, we're gonna simplify their connection a bit. I'm not gonna worry about back there too much right now. Let's go ahead and make his temple a little bit higher, so somewhere up here. Just give him a small forehead. Which means I'll probably make the corner of his eyebrow like up here somewhere. So I'm gonna pull this back more. Let's pull this back more. So yeah, I really want this to kind of work really well together right here. Come on. All right, and then this area here, I like that this one has this like broad transition forward. So we're just gonna do that. Something kind of like that, see how that feels. Definitely want him to have more of a, he's like a male character, so male characters often have more of a forehead kind of separation and shape going on. So I'm just gonna bring his forehead forward a little bit. But we can keep his cranium small at least. I guess that might be good. Go in here. I'm gonna smooth this out. Let's go ahead and mirror this across. I'm gonna solo this really quickly. Just want to make sure it's spherical. Okay, cool. Only problem with mirroring it is they're gonna intersect each other, and then it becomes almost impossible to work on them separately. So I'm gonna have to I don't know. I'm not 100% sure right now how I'm gonna approach the eye stuff. Let's see. So that's why I took a break and went over to the nose. I'm gonna make the nostril forward, right? Because I'm gonna need the nasal labial folds to be able to go up the up and onto the nose bridge. No, I don't want that to do that. That'd be crazy. That'd be crazy. Chin a little bit smaller, pointier. Maybe if it kind of matched a little bit more the shape of his nose. You can see that the chin's kind of very wiggly, and kind of like there's some not so great kind of curve. Like this feels very clean, but the chin kind of doesn't. And that's just because I'm mostly working at a too high of a subdivision level. But I'm not super concerned about it at the moment, just because I don't want to spend too much time on like figuring out a specific shape if I'm still kind of like playing around with it. Let's pull this up a bit. My only concern right now is I'm not sure if he's going to be cute. I think there's things we can, and I mean, there's a balance. I know your team's probably like not all together on what if your character should be cute or funky and weird, which is something you guys have to figure out. But I think personally, if I was doing this, I would find somewhere in between, right? Like I would satisfy both areas, right? Because he's a goblin, right? And I want him to be a little weird, right? Because goblins are weird. But I also don't want him to be like unsympathetic, right? Whereas I think it's kind of funny and sad when it's like he's like a cute character. He's a little cute, right? He's not like a little jerk or anything like that we hate. Or like a bad guy from like Lord of the Rings, like a bad goblin. He's kind of like a sad guy. Really, we kind of feel bad for him. So I'm just kind of exaggerating some of those features, making some things smaller, some things bigger. Like if his mouth is smaller, his eyes are bigger, and then his oops, and then his like jaw a little less strong. then I think he's going to be kind of a little bit more in that softer space. You can just keep reducing the jaw a bit. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit. Yeah, and the only thing I would really want to be changing a lot here is just trying to get a little bit more clean with some of these shapes. I think there's like a really cool opportunity for like some really just like clean silhouette shapes, right? Like this right here, I don't like that. This, you know, like I like that. That's like flat, little tiny thing, flat, and then we got this curve. So, I mean, or I might do something like this where I'd make it like you know, a continuous shape, right? Um, I'd have to clean it up a bit, but you know, something like that might be kind of cool. Doesn't make much sense as a nose though. That's not a problem. You can kind of see them coming together a little bit. I do like what you're doing with the eyeballs. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and do the eyelid thing. It's all flash lightning, so just in case my computer dies, I should probably stop this recording and restart a new one and save a file. So I'm gonna do file, save. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and do this. Duplicated it, solo it just to make sure it's in the right position. Okay, cool. So I'm pretty sure what you did was you did this approach, which is a great approach. So we're gonna do that. Oh, wait, slice curve, not check curve, so do that. I'm gonna go ahead and Z-remesh it, keeping groups. So let's solo this really quickly. So Z-remesh, keeping groups, there we go. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do geometry, edge loop, panel loop. Let's get a little bit more thickness. No, less polish. Bevel's totally fine. Let's get more bevel. So solo. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and rotate this to match that. Let's make sure we got perspective on again when we start messing around with this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do auto groups. So that's just going to, because when I do bevel groups, you have all these extra poly groups. That's just going to, auto groups just groups them based on continuity of geometry. So I'm just going to mask that. Let's see how thick this is. It's a little bit too thick, but we'll see. All right, so I'm going to stop looking at that. And let's go ahead and, okay, yeah, okay, cool. Mask. All right, I'm just going to, and let's, okay, yeah, that's actually a pretty good spot. Just open that up a bit. And let's just open the other one down a little bit. Okay. While that other one's masked, I'm just going to go ahead and get this to kind of wrap around a little bit more appropriately. And the other one as well. I'll have to clean it up a lot more later if I want it to be a really nice eyelid, but that'll be probably when I start welding things together and then start retopping stuff a bit. Oops, forgot that I had that masked off. And I'm hiding my masks by pressing Control H on Windows, so that's why sometimes there's a mask, but you can't see the mask. So I'll come on here. I'm just gonna push all that stuff back. And on this, I might go ahead and just use clay buildup just to kind of eat away this area back here, just so we don't have like that surface underneath it kind of being gooey. Okay, let's go ahead and I'm going to take this area. I want this to be a lot smoother, or like consistent, not smoother, but this line here be a little bit more consistent. So I might go ahead and make sure I'm maybe start working at a lower subdivision level again. Go ahead and maybe flatten this down a bit. And just kind of getting this nose bone thing to help me understand how I'm going to transition the eye socket. Okay. Let's go ahead and keep looking at our references. This one's really nice, but neither here nor there. All right, going back up to here on my character, I think his eyes are too big. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my move tool. I'm going to go ahead and turn on multi-tool select, and I'm going to go ahead and control shift stuff to turn them off or make them not selectable. So I just want these guys, and I want to make sure I'm actually in the eyeball. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and go to the center. Let's turn off symmetry. I'm just going to make sure symmetry's off. Oh, I have the hand selected. Okay, nothing here. I'm going to select none. So it's just like masking brush, control shift drag to select none, and then control tap to invert selection. All right, so just grab that and scoop. So on the eyelids, it's still masked, so I'm going to go to the eyelid, clear my mask out. There we go. Now it should work. Okay. I might just shrink his face vertically a little bit. I think that'll help make him a little cuter. Or, you know, a little younger, or less, or more helpless looking. Okay, let's go back to this eyelid. This eyelid here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this eye. I'm going to go ahead and fill it with white. So we'll just fill RGB. I just have to have a brush with RGB on turned on. Just fill, and then that way I can kind of see what that looks like. And I might switch over to not skin shade. I hate skin shade. I want, let's see, material, Zbrush, paint. And then let's get maybe a bit of his skin color. I could do this. Let's see, I think click and drag. Nope, okay, that doesn't work. It has to be in the actual file. So I'll just give him sort of that yellow color, but not too intense. And this is white, but let's go ahead and give it something a little less harsh. So let's fill object, and then this is everything else. Okay. So yeah, improvements to the ears, that's all good. I'm glad you simplified it. So we're just going to go ahead and just continue to refine that. Go ahead and subdivide it once. I'm going to go ahead and just eat out this area. Okay, so I might turn on backface masking. So this is under here, backface masking, and then that's also underneath, I think, brush or alpha under auto masking or something like that. So that way I'm not going to affect the back of the ear. I'm going to do this on thin surfaces. So we're going to smooth that out. I just want this to have an overlap. Let's use, I want to subdivide again. I'm going to use standard, but thin versus standard. getting a little laggy, and that's because I have dynamic still on. I'm gonna make this thicker so it's not just like a thin, strippy line. And then let's go ahead and just get that back to being as simple as you had it. So let's see. Okay. Go ahead and let's go ahead and bring the Z intensity on my buildup down. Let's go ahead and use no alpha. No alpha. Just so we don't get those square shapes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and build volume into his earlobe. Let's go down to subdivision level. I'll turn off dynamic on this object. Nope, I'm not going to. Okay. Let's go ahead and just pull this stuff all back. I'm going to use, I have move topological as my default move brush, but I want to use the full move on this because, the normal move brush, because I want make sure I'm getting the back of the ears as well. And I'm going to want to make sure it doesn't get too thin on the edges. Just make sure it doesn't end up being too pointy. So let's go ahead and make sure there's like an ear hole that goes into his head a little bit, and I'll probably come over here and just push that in as well. It feels like a little bit like it sits into his head. Okay, I see what you get. So he does not have like a human necessarily on this part down here. I'm going to de-emphasize that earlobe. I'm going to go ahead and clay polish it, see if I can get it a little bit more simplified again. Let's go ahead and Z-remesh it. Okay, let's just look at the silhouette of these ears. Turn off perspective, so I'm just kind of moving them from the front. Let's go ahead and pull that back a bit. So it sits behind the jaw. Alright. Kind of want that to have like an angle there. That'd be kind of cool. And I might go ahead and let's turn off that. Let's go ahead and rotate this back a little bit. You know, our ears should usually, you know, go backwards a little bit, so we'll just do that. Alright, let's just clean up this area a little bit. At some point, you know, I'm going to have to start welding things together. And, you know, for mine right here, I would be really close to start welding stuff together. Okay. Only thing I don't like here is I don't like how irregular this right here is. Let's just go ahead. Oops. It's gonna make that all that chin, jaw, just all right there. Okay. Turn symmetry back on, or perspective back on. I really need this. I feel like still his jaw shape is just still too strong. His cheekbones, everything, it's just like feeling way too like beefy. So I'm gonna go ahead and just bring his cheekbones in again like that. And maybe his as well as jaw. Let's go pull this up a bit. Make his chin jaw area a lot smaller. Kind of like the forward slopey shape that I get. Like, I would maybe consider emphasizing that if I had more time. I would even personally, I would be playing with the nose, but that's just me. I like his nose. I'm totally cool with his nose being small. I didn't like where it was previously just because I felt like it kind of became a little too like thin and stringy. So I think there's a way you guys can do the nose you were going for, but not quite so like yeah, stringy. It's the only word I can think of. So let's just pull this all in. Cheekbone maybe just it's more like up here. Let's just smooth that area out. Get some lumps going on in there. And these guys, I want these guys to make sure from here to here, you know. I mean, especially it's going to be easier once I weld them, but I want them to be too wobbly and separate from each other. Okay. Yeah. So some other things I would do is brow. You know, I still feel like there's something about his brow and skull that feels too large, maybe too square. Maybe bring that all the front of his skull back or in a little bit. Same thing with that cheekbone or that eye socket, sorry. That, I guess. Yeah, I think he's looking kind of cute. Some things I would do is once I weld things together, I would start softening some things and making certain things like large, right? So I would probably I do like this right here being prominent, um, and then I would like lose it. And over here, it's getting a little too the shape is getting a little too complex there, so I'm just gonna pull that back and maybe simplify it a bit. You know, like I said, I probably should make him a little bit more choppy and angular, right? Like I got a lot of curves going on. It's probably good if I made some things a little bit more angular, but that's I mean, I'm not gonna get away from this if I keep going, so I need to find a place to stop. Yeah, the eyelids, you know, what's really important at this stage, I think, is to make sure one, I would give enough clearance for your eyelids, like essentially an eye socket. So this brow region right here, you know, has enough space um, for your eyelids to kind of like feel like they're actually, you know, like kind of sit back in space, you know, like that transition from your eyebrow to your eyelid. So there's going to be a lot of playing around with the eye socket region just to make all this work. It's a tough deal, always with stylized characters and their gigantic eyeballs. Let's see, let's get this to be more of an arc. All right, so by moving all that stuff, I got a lot more play with the eyelids. So if the eyes feel like they're getting too big now, then what I need to do is I need to probably just scale them down a little bit. Let's see. I don't like this right here. It should be like a Pac-Man opening his mouth from if you look at it from this side. This needs to be a continuous. The eyelids are their thinnest or depth-wise at the corners, and they're at the thickness like right around there. So at the corners, I need to pull this back as well. I want to make sure I can get them to line up if I can. Let's look at some of these. So, you know, our character has an eyelid, but there's also like an eye socket fat region, right? So a lot of these characters, you know, here's eyelid, here's the eye socket region, eyelid, right here's the eye socket region, even on stylized characters. This character, you know, it's very much simplified. Um, so, you know, that's something I would probably want to do is, let's go ahead and go back to this concept of scaling down his eye. And so, I would probably just, you know, just give enough of a space there, at least just for front plane for, I don't know. It's up to you. I don't think it really matters that much. Let's see. If we made his brow region just by default kind of more like this, like a arch shape, I think that'll make him look gentler. Maybe his nose bone goes really thin, but I would make sure the transition off of the nose bone as nice, so something like that. Down onto the cheek. Let's see. Let's go ahead and flatten that. Or let's use clay. I'm probably just stretching out polygons too much, so I probably need to Z mesh this guy. Let's go ahead and Z mesh it. Probably set it a little higher. Oof. Yep. Let's go ahead and hard polish that. Hard polish that. Okay. Push this eye socket area right here, just so it doesn't penetrate the eyelid so much. Now this eyelid got a little flat inside of it, so let's just sew this a little bit. Pull this forward, or up, just so it's a little bit rounder. Now I pull it down, of course, but it's trying to get that rounder. I would even maybe even consider if I was doing this, like recreating eyelids. Something you know, if I was making this, I would want to be doing is, you know, I often have to remake things multiple times just because, you know, I I mess it up too much and I lose too much of the original shape that I liked, or you know, I figure out a better way of making something. So it's good to get to that point where you don't feel like everything so needs to be preserved and all your progress. You know, it's like that sunk cost fallacy thing, where you know just because you worked on it for a long time, you know, can make it feel like you can't throw something away. Let's see. Okay. Eyes are probably the hardest area to work on, but let's see. At a certain point, I would probably then, let's see, let's go ahead and turn this off. This was a simpler, actually, let me see. If I go to brush, if I have this move tool selected, if I go brush, Z, actually brush, insert, multi-mesh primitives, and I select let's try selecting a sphere 32. Let's go ahead and click solo. Ooh, it's tiny, it's super small, but can I make it bigger? Oh man, it's not centered. That's annoying. What I probably do is, let's see, brush. Let's make, what's that? Brush, depth, -100. Let's see if we do that. Oh, okay. Brush, let's not do that. There's probably some way to get that to actually go to the center of my model instead, but let's see. solo. So let's do that. And we're going to go ahead and pull this up, center, center. We'll scale that down so it fits. Might have to move it up and down a little bit. Let's go ahead and V, get slightly dimmer yellow color. Fill objects, or dynamic subdivision, and then we'll just go back to our goblin color. All right, so let's go ahead and move this maybe to the left, scale it up. Just trying to fit it back into my eyelids. I think I had my eyeballs bigger, but maybe just pushed back further. Yeah, I think that's it. Something like that. I'm going to want my eyeballs to stay spherical if I can help it. It's going to make my rigging artist's life a lot easier. I think the eyeballs should be even bigger. Scale down just slightly. I did say the eyeballs were hard, right? Let's see. Scale that down. That's the problem with that freaking objects, that sphere I had not having a centered pivot. Made it hard just to replace the model and get exactly the same pivot point. So I couldn't just scale it up, so it's a little bit of a downside. All right, center. So the nice thing about this though is it's way lower res. And what we could do is we can use things like Brush Z Modeler. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, hover over this and right click, say polygroup, polygroup, polyloop, and then I'm going to go ahead and isolate just this one. We're going to do auto groups just to give them both different polygroups. Let's bring everything back. And then what I could do is I could take this one, let's mask that, Shift F, and I'll just pull that object back in space like that. And then what I might do is I'm just going to go ahead and come over here and do, let's see, Brush Z Modeler. I take this and then we're going to do we're going to extrude, polygroup all. We're just going to extrude this back in space. And make sure we're at a lower subdivision level. And then we're just going to grab these edges and I'm going to go, oops, bevel. Let's do 2 rows, I don't know. And let's do, yeah. I think there should be something about polygrouping. Soft edge. Let's do this. Something like that. Let's go ahead and clear that mask. Okay. Just this one's gonna be really small. No, come on. Okay. In this case, instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add a bevel. Or sorry, insert edge loop. Let's do. This is hard. Insert single edge loop. Oh, what the heck? Insert edge loop. There we go. Maybe put an edge loop there. Edge loop in there. All right, so let's take a look at this guy really quick. I'm gonna take this, and we're going to go ahead and invert selection. I'll press Control W to mask everything. So I want those to all be one polygroup. I'm gonna take this thing and this thing, them in one polygroup. Now we have an iris and a pupil. Iris, I'm gonna go ahead and set it to black, or pupil, and then iris, I'm just gonna go ahead and give it a really dark brown color. So fill object. So something like that. If I need to, you can see it's like when we do dynamic subdivision, it gets a little blurry. If you don't like that, what you can do is you can just subdivide it instead. And then we'll just take this, grab this color, go in here, fill object, and there we go. Now we have a cleaner color. So, and then what we'll do is we need to take, I think, this guy, and I need to just carbon set a little bit. Oops. Yep, I'm on the wrong one. Okay, let's grab this guy again. So, yep, it's leaving. His eyeball is leaving the eye socket again, which is super annoying. Hopefully I got his eye kind of the right shape. Let's see. Or right size. I mean, his pupil could be smaller. But let's see. Let's push his eyeball forward a little bit. I think at this point, if I was doing this and this is my model, I would either A, try to figure out how to get that to be, you know, when I do that sphere replacement trick that, you know, it replaces nicely. But in this case, I'm just going to keep going because I'm, you know, like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'm just going to force these eyelids to fit. And let's go ahead and turn on hot stuff. Oh, let's clear out my mask. Let's go ahead and pull that forward. All right, there we go. And this is all the nice thing about, what you call it? Meshes being low res, right? At this stage is, you know, we're just getting really simple stuff, like using that dynamic subdivision level. I mean, this, I say low res isn't super low res, but pull this stuff in. If his eyes feel too buggy, what that usually means, like in this case, I feel like his eyes might be bulging too much, or you see like you can kind of sense a dimensionality down here. Usually what I do is, that means I feel like his sphere of his eye is too small. So if I take a look at this, right, so his sphere of his eye might be too small, so I probably would want that to be bigger. I'm not going to try doing that now, just because again, that's going to be way too much time. But yeah, and then what I'd have to do is just refigure out, you know, there's a lot of refiguring stuff out as we try to make all these pieces fit together. Totally normal. So let's do that. Especially with the eyes, you're gonna have to constantly be like fixing everything else. Totally happens. Let's go ahead and just, like, that's getting a little too concave, so I'm adding a little volume in there with clay. Same thing with this right here. This is too concave. I don't like that. You have to figure out how the eyelid in this area right here starts to work together. That's starting to get a little uncomfortable for me. I might have to scale or move the nose around. Actually, that's probably what I would do. Let's just do that. Maybe this nose bone is going too far forward. Like too deep, maybe? I don't know. And then this nose will be going back a little bit more. Something like that. What I would do is, let's see, let's take a look at this. I'm gonna go ahead and slice this. So we're gonna do slice curve. Wait, actually, let's turn off perspective. We'll do slice curve. Recut that. We're gonna, oh, dang it. All right, so these guys got merged together at one point. So we're gonna do this just like that. Shoot, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and do this. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna get rid of all that stuff on that side. I'm gonna close this off. We're gonna do close all. Oh, delete hidden first. Delete hidden. Close hole. There we go. Looks ugly, but it's okay. I can't see that part. We're gonna go ahead and delete this part. So we'll go ahead and. Oop. Yeah. This is getting messy. Let's go ahead and just merge this and this together. So let's go separate rectangle, Control W. All right. So, okay. This is okay. I know this is getting really ridiculous, but let's go ahead and Control W that together. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go ahead and run polish by groups. We'll see if this helps me a little bit. Kind of does. Let's go ahead and do Zbrush with keep groups on. Oop. Keep groups. Turn off symmetry. Okay. Kind of did that for me. Let's do it again. Groups. Keep groups. Polish by groups. And then what I'm gonna do is now what I can do is we can start beveling or extruding this. So let's rebrush the modeler, extrude. So we'll just extrude this. Okay, cool. It's a little bit, and mostly just because I want to go ahead and select this, then turn that off. I'm gonna go ahead and scale it down. Oops. And then, let's see, let's take a look at this. Oh, where's outside? All right, so we're gonna have to play around with this to make it work with the rest of his face. Let's go to the main nose. Just push this stuff up right here. I feel like I'm just like ruining what I have here. Yeah, I think I am. So let's just not do that. We're gonna take this. I'm gonna Control Z that back. We'll just get it to like right around here. And then when I weld them together, I might do something like let's do subtool. Actually, I can do it right now. Let's do, and I'll duplicate this. Don't make me. I'll duplicate it. All right, I'll duplicate this. I'm gonna do subtract. Turn on live boolean. I don't know where I put it on my. Yeah, here it is. All right, and then we're just gonna scale this local symmetry on this duplicate one. Scale that down. Pull that down. There we go. Okay. Oh. Let's make sure symmetry's turned on, not dynamic. Oh, I hate that. But with local. So we'll just scale it down. Pull that down. So now we can kind of figure out the nose. Scale it up in the y-axis just so that works. And I don't want it to start affecting stuff below it, so let's go ahead and pull this out. Pull that out. Pull that out. And pull this out. Make that start. So by making this start, if this is going to subtract it, it's going to stop right there. So it won't affect anything else. And we'll make this go here. All right. And that should work. There we go. That way it's not going to hit my that part of my nose. And I could have done this with cylinders instead. So let's see. Let's actually pull this down. Keep scaling it up in the y-axis. Scale that in the z-axis. I don't know what's going on right there. That's weird. Anyway, so this mesh is too messy, I think, to use for this purpose. But the purpose of that is just to then I could do merge those pieces together. You can do like a Boolean merge. Go down here, make Boolean mesh. Or actually, what you can do is you can take all these to new folder. Doesn't matter what it's called. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put all those pieces that are gonna be Boolean together in there, and then what I can do is do Boolean group, Boolean folder. And you can see it created a Boolean mesh, but there's something off about it. Oh wait, that's because I have that selected. There we go. I got that. And then what I can do is just then run Zbrush with keep groups on if you want to. So you can try that. It's probably gonna look gross. Let's make sure we have symmetry on. Keep groups. Let's mirror it first. Mirror, because this side's better. And then zero measure. Keep groups on. Works pretty well, but a little clunky. So let's just go ahead and try turn off keep groups and just do zero measure. Zero measure. Zero measure. You know, I'm probably gonna have to like clean this area up a bit, but at least now, you know, we have that nostril cavity. You know, I should have played for the shapes a little bit more because these don't look great. But you know, it's something. And then, you know, usually this part is down lower. And then, you know, we can lose it right here. Let's go ahead and add a subdivision level. You know, we can soften and lose the nostril right there. And then what we can do is come back here, and then we can, you know, sharpen or enhance it. And maybe pull that back. Anyways, okay, yeah, I've gone on way too long. So hopefully this helps. Some other things I would do, I think you probably already had, is block in maybe some eyebrows. Wouldn't worry about eyelashes for this kind of character, just because, you know, he's not going to really probably have prominent eyelashes. Something I should probably do in this one is, let's do turn off local symmetry, mirror. Oh, okay, let's delete subdivision levels, mirror and weld, and let's try that on the eyelids. Mirror. So usually I duplicate that before I do that because, you know, they pretty much become welded together once you do that. So if you don't want those to be welded, you know, make sure you make a backup. But I'm doing this just because I want to see what those all look like together. Another thing I'd sometimes do is I'll do this where I'll go insert. I'll just use a polysphere, who cares? Polysphere, B. Let's go ahead and do that. Fill object, and then scale this down, pull it forward, scale it down, pull it up. Let's flatten it. And I'm just going to put it right there. And we'll scale that down. That's supposed to be like the reflection on the cornea. We don't have cornea, of course, but that's what that's supposed to be. And let's go ahead and, if I polish that? No. Maybe negative inflate it? Ooh, nope. Okay, I'll just scale it down a little more. Okay, and then control drag to duplicate. So I'll sometimes do something like that, just so I can kind of get a sense of what my character looks like, you know. It gives a little bit more life to his face. Might even do, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take this as well, and I'll just give a little bit of shading to the, so I'm using standard with RGB, and the RGB low. Let's grab this color, I might go a little higher, and let's turn on symmetry. And you can see I'm getting like a little bit of, like almost like light catching down there. Let's go back to that. So that just gives a little bit more dimension to his eyes too. So anyways, hope this helps. I'm going to stop here, and good luck.